Greetings, fellow primates. Jim the Ape here, and I have an unwritten rule that has, up until this point, also been unspoken. And that rule is that I alternate between the sexes for each of my direct response videos. In other words, when I make a video using clips from a male YouTuber and responding to them directly, my next response video will be to a female, and vice versa. This rule provides an empirical defense against the charge that I'm just a bitter misogynist that hates women. Whether or not my critics will accept this rule as a refutation remains to be seen. However, I'm cheating my rule a bit with today's video because two of my fellow talking animals, Bearing and Teal Deer, both responded to two different feminist women in about a 24-hour time period. And it's just too hard to pick one. So, I'll be alternating between them at random points throughout this video. Also, let's play the Social Justice Warrior drinking game. Trust me, you're gonna need it to get through this. Well, we're starting off with the one Bearing responded to, and right off the bat take 3 shots for brightly colored hair, hipster glasses, and awkward bloopers intentionally edited into the start of the video.
Hi, it's another amazing Monday.
It's not Monday, but whatever.
Do you have a feminine product on you?
No, because I'm a single, straight, cisgendered male who's far too busy perpetuating rape culture, supporting the patriarchy, and doing everything I can to oppress women. Also because I'm an ape.
Because I can't afford the tax.
But you can afford hair dye, apparently. And yes, Bearing pointed that out too. I don't mean to rip you off, man, but I thought it bears repeating. See what I did there? Yeah, sorry, that was stupid.
Today I want to talk about what is kind of amazing.
The biodiversity of life on Earth? The vastness of time and space? The fact that Donald Trump could be our next president?
A lot of women are coming together for the fight against tampon tax.
Oh, I'm sorry. Truly the fight to pay slightly less money for toiletries and getting one step closer to tax-exempt status for your vagina was way more amazing than those other things.
It's an admirable fight against tampon tax.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's childish and self-entitled. Tell you what, I'm getting a bit bored of you already. Let's see what Teal Deer's contribution has to say.
Hi genitals, I'm back. I'm so sorry for that minor speed bump in my YouTube channel.
I dare say, good madam, that I am far more than just a set of genitals. How dare you objectify me like that? And I don't give a fuck about your channel. Get to the point.
But anyway, since I am back, let's dive right on into the medical and social invention of biological sex.
I'd say after your 50-second rambling intro that I'm skipping most of, you can't say you're diving right into anything. At best, you've dipped your toes in, and now you're walking into the shallow end. Then again, I'm one to talk. Also, biological sex is, by definition, a biological construct, not a medical or social one. But this ought to be good.
So, this video is directed towards people who are already kind of understanding that gender is a social construct, but maybe aren't sold or haven't thought about the idea that biological sex is also a social construct.
Okay, just because you talk fast doesn't mean I won't be dissecting your bullshit. And I have thought about it just now, and have concluded that you're wrong on both counts. You are part of a sexually dimorphic species that reproduces through sexual reproduction. That creates the basic dichotomy known as biological sex. Even in terms of gender roles and tendencies for boys to like some things while girls like very different things, long-term evolution accounts for that, even on a psychological level. But of course, neither is a 100% perfect binary. There are genetic anomalies that make certain individuals' sex harder to determine at first glance. There are also plenty of people who stray from the basic tendencies of their gender roles. Neither is proof that there is some mythical third biological sex, and transgenderism is kind of a whole other topic.
I might make a video about gender later, but this is for people who already are kind of aware. I hear a very simplistic kind of cis-splaining comment sometimes.
Fucking hell. Again with this blank-splaining, insert supposedly privileged class here thing? By the way, take a shot. But for fuck's sake, when someone is expressing their opinions to you, it is not some evil, oppressive thing that you have to have a name for. If you don't agree with it, just say you disagree. Fuck, how hard is that?
That explains trans people as gender is how you feel and how you identify. And biological sex is your body.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair distinction. And those who feel their identity does not match their body should be allowed to change their body so that it does. But that's only between the two undeniable biological sexes. There's no scientific proof of, nor do I recognize, the validity of the hundreds of special snowflake identities on Tumblr. And if you're one of those idiots that needs to feel different so badly that you adopt one of those retarded labels, then you are an insult to the legitimate members of the LGBT community, and to the T part in particular. But I digress.
And while this is, I guess, a good place to start for a lot of people, it's very simplistic, it needs a little bit of work.
Yes, because nothing can ever be simple, can it? Let's go back to Tampon Girl.
Silly, I know. Taxes on tampons? Why?
Well, probably because you have to pay sales tax on everything you buy. And there's a lot of science that goes into health and beauty products. And at the end of the day, Uncle Sam ain't happy till he's bled you dry.
Well, the argument of the tax people
That'd be the IRS.
say that taxes on tampons are completely legit
Too legit to quit. Sorry.
because having a tampon is an absolute luxury.
Well, that word doesn't have to mean champagne and caviar at the Ritz. It could just mean you won't die if you don't have it.
I'm sorry, what?
You heard me. You're more fun than the other one.
Having my period is a luxury?
No, having the insert brand name here, super absorbent, ultra maxi extreme mega awesome tampon and or pad is the luxury. Having your period is an unchangeable part of your biology as a human female. Though, to my understanding, there are contraceptive pills that reduce the frequency of them.
Really? 'Cause it's not like a trip to the spa to me.
Thanks, now I'm picturing the opening scene of Carrie, but instead of Sissy Spacek, I'm seeing you.
So does that mean I can go without tampons? Because luxury items like a cell phone, a computer, or what else gets taxed on luxury items? Like smoothies, going out for dinner, that's taxed, and buying fancy clothes, those are taxed. Those are items that you can live without.
Thank you for making my point for me, that you can live without them. Or at least you can technically survive without them. At any rate, there are a wide variety of products to suit every need. So if it's really that big a deal and you really can't afford the pink tax, just get the bargain brand. Sure, it's not as good, but as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for.
So, what's going to happen if all the women in the world decide they can live without having tampons and pads?
The streets will run red with blood. And then the 90-some-odd% male sanitation workers will have to come clean it up. What was that about equal representation?
Like, women use it practically every day.
Or, once a month.
Because, well, let me tell you, there's a lot of women in this world, and a lot of them use tampons, pads, and things like that. So why is there a tax on it?
Because Uncle Sam is a gambling addict, and because you won't die from not having specialized hygiene products to catch that unfortunate residue from your equally unavoidable Aunt Flo. Dare I say, you humans have a fucked up family. Anyway, let's see what Miss Non-Binary Biology is up to.
I I often see some social justice light people get a little bit nervous when I talk about biological sex being a social construct because they're like, you're pushing it, you're sounding crazy, but just hear me out.
Oh, I will. But have you considered maybe they're nervous because your logic allows you to blame them for being cisgendered and or male? Or perhaps when they say you sound crazy, they might actually be right? Ah, who am I kidding? Of course you haven't.
What are things that we as a society use to determine what someone's biological sex is?
Yeah, Teal Deer already explained this beautifully, and in far more detail than I ever could. I'll link his response in the description, as always, but basically, if it is not readily apparent, as it is with most people, you could, with their permission, check their genitalia. If that does not make it clear, or if you still have doubts, you could go a level deeper and test their DNA. Their 23rd base pair should be either XX or XY. But if it's somehow something else, then the presence of a Y chromosome indicates biological male, while its absence indicates female. Anything besides XX or XY is an atypical genetic anomaly.
And yes, there are multiple factors, which is problematic because...
Problematic! Take a shot.
I'm going to talk about 5 categories that we use.
Which Teal Deer basically debunked one by one. And he and I are both giving you one determining factor for biological sex which is scientifically proven. In case you missed it, it's the presence or absence of the Y chromosome in the 23rd base pair of your DNA.
And obviously, if there's 5 different categories and people can have different aspects of different categories, how can we call them one thing? How can there only be 2 sexes? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
Because you are merely asserting that your 5 categories are accurate without any evidence. Meanwhile, I know of exactly 0 other people on the face of the earth using these 5 categories. And if there are, they're certainly not biologists.
Because people can have male, 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 stereotypically, and then female, female. What are we going to call them?
Best 3 out of 5. Male wins.
So these 5 categories are karyotypes, genitalia, ability to reproduce.
Wait. Ability to reproduce is a category of biological sex? I would love to hear you justify the implication that women whose wombs aren't in perfect working order aren't fully women, or that men who happen to be shooting blanks aren't real men. Then again, that last one is pretty widely believed in society anyway. I can't imagine why.
Hormones and secondary sex characteristics.
Keyword: secondary.
Let's start by talking about genitalia. Ooh, yes, most men, and I'm just saying men and women for sake of argument, and I'm talking about biological sex, cis people, sorry for this, but most men, yes, have the obvious penis, testes. Most women have the obvious clitoris, vagina.
You don't say! Also, do you see how your feminism and or social justice warrior ideology forces you to grovel and apologize for the simple act of talking about the sexes in a general way? Like, if you don't, one of your cohorts will suddenly turn on you and condemn you for supporting the binary. In a video where you're claiming that biological sex is a social construct. Do you see how ass backwards and stupid that is? Of course you don't.
Fine. But what about people that are born with variations of these organs? There are plenty of people who have sometimes both of these organs, sometimes in between, sometimes developing in different directions, sometimes neither. There are people with uteruses that don't have periods. There are people with testes who don't produce sperm, and ovaries that don't produce gametes. What about people with complete, partial, or mild androgen insensitivity syndrome? I think I just spit everywhere. That was so hot. Oh my god, subscribe. Yeah, well, these people have XY chromosomes like male, right? Except they don't develop male sex characteristics or genitalia. and this can either be fully, completely they don't, or just partially, a little bit, and a lot of times they don't find out that they are XY until they hit puberty.
Yeah, mutations and genetic anomalies happen. That doesn't constitute a whole new sex. By the way, that would make an awesome Aladdin parody. Actually, come to think of it, I think it already exists. Pretty sure my pet human was watching it the other day. God damn, you're boring. Back to Captain Bloody Underpants!
Do you know what happens when women go without?
Do you know what happens to a toad when it gets struck by lightning? There's a bloody mess and someone has to clean it up. That's about it.
Because it's pretty gross. It's not fun. We have to wad up toilet paper or try to beg strangers if they have a tampon, which is extremely embarrassing.
Sorry, but none of these are reasons not to tax something. Smokers could probably say similar things about what happens when they can't get their cigarettes and are going into nicotine withdrawal. Alas, there is still a tax on tobacco in this country, and slowly killing yourself for no apparent benefit is still the favorite pastime of millions of you silly humans.
If you want me to put it into money terms, could you imagine all the hours that you have to pay people to clean up the mess that we're gonna leave?
You mean you don't even have the goddamn common courtesy to clean up after yourself? I bet you're one of those people that leaves their shit in a public toilet and doesn't flush it on the way out. Also, if you're going to pay people to clean it up, why don't you just pay for the fucking tampons in the first place? Or do you mean you want someone else to pay someone else to clean it up? Because two completely uninvolved third parties have no responsibility for your mess.
It's gonna be quite a mess, and actually, that might just spend a lot more money than by taking the tax off tampons.
This is the very epitome of first world problems.
Seriously, it's crazy where this world goes.
Yes, the unbelievably fast rotation of the Earth on its axis, as well as its orbit around the sun and the way it travels through space constantly in the ever-expanding universe, while down here on the surface, it doesn't feel like it's moving at all. Oh, but you were still talking about the tampon thing, weren't you?
If anything, I feel like the menstrual cloths or the diva cups.
I don't even want to know what that is. It sounds exceptionally dirty.
I feel like those are a luxury.
Oh, so those should be classed as luxury items, but not tampons or pads. I'm glad that the law changes based solely on your feelings.
What decade are we in?
The 2010s. Or the 20-teens, whichever you prefer.
It's not justifiable to have them taxed. You're trying to say that it's not normal for women to have this bodily function.
No. No one is saying that because it's a biological fact of life. The tax is not on menstruation itself, but on the products used to deal with that bodily function. Nothing manufactured is ever free to make. It takes resources, it takes materials, it takes man-hours, and sadly, it often takes unsavory labor conditions, i.e. sweatshops. None of those things are infinite, and all of them cost money. Some more than others. So no, you cannot have tax-exempt status on your maxi pads because they cost money to make. And drunk, belligerent Uncle Sam needs his cut, goddammit! Let's see what Little Miss Categories of Biology is on about.
There are so many versions of human genitalia that nature has designed.
Actually, they develop by natural selection as a part of evolutionary biology. And there really aren't all that many versions of human genitalia. As the video clip that Teal'c used in his response simultaneously states and visually depicts via CG animation, the two basic variations of genitalia that help distinguish the two sexes from one another are both based on the same structures. Basically, the clitoris and penis start from the same place but develop differently. while the lower part of the vagina aligns more with the testicles. Even the internal structures of the ovaries and testes appear to be similar at first before they develop their respective differences in the womb. Perhaps this is why certain mutations or anomalies can cause these different outcomes that you speak of. Something atypical happens before the genitals are fully developed, probably something genetic, and as a direct result, they develop in an abnormal way. But again, that doesn't mean a new biological sex is formed.
That it cannot fit into these two male-female boxes. It just can't.
Assertions, assertions, assertions. It seems to me like maybe you've peppered in a bit of argument from incredulity here as well. Either way, I'm going to need to see some evidence for these claims of yours.
What about someone's karyotype? Is that the point that defines what biological sex they are? XX or XY?
Yes, I told you earlier.
But what if they're XY and have CAAS like I mentioned earlier and don't develop the male genitalia?
If I can borrow a soundbite from Undoomed here, and I think I can because he endorsed my channel early on, here's my answer.
Hey moron! Fucking moron! We've been over this!
Yeah, if the person in question has a Y chromosome, then they are biologically male. I don't care what they choose to identify as at that point. A genetic anomaly does not magically make them a different sex.
What if they're XXX? What if they're XXY? What if they're XO?
Is that last one made up? It sounds made up. Anyway, if they're XO, then they're a game of tic-tac-toe. If they're XXY, then they're an indie film from 2007 about an intersex teenage girl, according to IMDb. I was looking to see if XXY was that shitty-looking TV show from the mid to late 2000s, but apparently that's Kyle XY. And last but certainly not least, if they're XXX, they're porn. And I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever.
Guys, there's just way too many variations of chromosomes as well for there to be two binary sexes.
Yeah, this is where you're crucially wrong. There may be more than two results, but there are only two types of chromosomes for the 23rd base pair, X and Y. Granted, there is a process that Teal Deer explained in his video, where there could be 3 chromosomes instead of a pair. The most common result of this is what we call Down syndrome. And there was a similar abnormality where a chromosome could be missing. I'm not an expert, but Teal Deer's video should give you a better idea of what I'm talking about.
What about the ability to reproduce?
Yeah, I already went off on you for even listing that as one of your categories.
I shouldn't even have to argue this.
Truly the laziest of argumentative hand waves. But what I don't understand is why you even brought it up in the first place if that's how you feel about it.
There are many people, women, with uteruses that cannot reproduce. There are plenty of men with testes that cannot reproduce.
Oh, so you're arguing against some kind of straw man. And what's with the sarcastic air quotes? Is your audience really that sensitive that they'll jump down your throat if you don't cater to their every little precious snowflake sensibilities? Like, if you talk about the differences between men and women with a straight face and no qualifiers, they'll send some kind of lynch mob to shout you into silence? Because if that's even a remotely factual description of the kinds of people you surround yourself with, you might just want to reconsider the company you keep. What's Once Upon a Time of the Month saying now?
It's a perfectly natural body process. Like, if you want to put tax on a natural body process, then does that mean you're going to tax me every time I fart?
Well, there is a humorous joke about air pollution in there somewhere, but I don't have the energy to make it right now. And no, your methane emissions will never be taxed because they don't cost anything to clean up. They just dissipate into the air, like the point of your video.
Are you going to tax me when I get my hiccups?
Again, no. Although it seems everyone has their own remedy for them. Some hold their breath, others drink water through a paper towel. I don't get it. My pet human apparently drinks water while holding his nose. What an idiot. Anyway, feel free to tell me your hiccup remedy in the comments below.
Is there going to be tax every time I have to take a poop?
You are adorable, and way more fun to listen to than that other one. My dear, I believe there is a masterful piece of literature that can help in reassuring you that visits to the restroom will not be taxed. It's called Everybody Poops. Well, there's that, and once again, you're talking about the bodily function itself being taxed, rather than the finite materials used to clean up after said bodily function. So, in this case, shitting may not be taxed, but toilet paper, indoor plumbing, baby wipes, and those little spray cans of air freshener to cover any residual odor could all be taxed, and it would make sense because there are many different ways of cleaning up after yourself, and those things cost money. Unfortunately, nowhere is it written in the Constitution that every American citizen has the right to distance themselves from their bodily waste in every conceivable way, much less the right to do so tax-free. That's just not a right that's guaranteed anywhere.
And there's like a bell that goes off in every person in the government's head saying, "What? We can tax them for that? It is a great idea! Mwahaha!" Really? Tax on pooping?
Yes, that is the idea that you just made up to compare it to the pink tax. It's not like that idea is getting any traction anywhere else. Nice impression of a politician, by the way. Very Saturday morning cartoon villain.
You might as well go there. That's practically the next step of having taxes on tampons, pads, and anything menstrual related.
I've pretty much already explained why those items are taxed. Let's see where we're at with the social construct of biology video.
What about hormones and secondary sex characteristics? I shouldn't even have to explain this one.
Again with that? Look, if you don't want to destroy the straw men that you've made, then why even bother? At any rate, hormones are like any other chemical that your body produces. And just like dopamine or serotonin, having varying levels of them can cause a wide array of effects on the body, and more specifically the brain. That doesn't alter your chromosomes, so it has no effect on your biological sex. However, it can be used to help change the body of someone whose biological sex is in opposition to their gender identity. But we've already drawn that distinction. And secondary sex characteristics are basically personality traits, which obviously differ wildly from person to person, regardless of their sex.
Not all men are strong, deep-voiced, hairy, smelly, androgen-filled. Ooh.
Not all men take a shot. Wait, no. That was a response to feminism. Never mind. Oh, and did you mean testosterone filled? Because that's the male hormone. Androgen sounds more like it pertains to androgyny, which is basically when a person's sex is not easy to determine. Freudian slip, perhaps?
And not all women are small, weak, high-pitched voiced, and full of estrogen.
Yeah, obviously not all women are weak. I think the existence of female MMA fighters kinda proves that. But on average, women have less upper body strength because historically, men generally did the physical labor and women tended to have more domestic roles, like cooking, cleaning, etc. Just because we're starting to get away from that dichotomy doesn't mean that millions of years of evolutionary biology are magically erased. I've already addressed the hormone thing. I'd agree that some women have voices that are not very high-pitched, some of which are rather appealing to my ears, dare I say sexy, but I assure you, yours is not one of them. And also, I would say that there are some vocal feminists that prove that not all women are small.
Also, there are plenty of men who develop breasts, or some breast tissue at least.
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
There's so much variation that we see constantly. Men with high-pitched voices, women with facial hair, and more upper body strength.
Yeah, but guess what? Variations of such superficial characteristics do not constitute a new biological sex. It doesn't work that way. Let's go back to the tampon lady.
Honestly, these things, women have to go through so much already, and you want them to be taxed.
Again, I think you're failing to see the difference between taxing the person directly, which everybody has to pay taxes, by the way, or taxing the bodily function itself, and taxing the specific items used to deal with that problem. Items which probably cost quite a bit in research and development to optimize the efficiency of. I'll link another one of Teal Deer's videos in the description where he breaks down the pink tax and presents tons of cold hard facts to back up his position that it's not really sexist discrimination as some have claimed that it is.
What? Taxes on tampons? Cut it out! I have to buy those things every single month.
Yes, we've established that there's a tax on them. I'm sorry, but your incredulity has become a bit redundant at this point. Also, I believe Teal Deer suggested buying in bulk might actually save you money. I guess depending on the specific brand you buy. Maybe that could make up for the tax that you've been complaining about this whole video. Just a thought.
And I also buy rice once a month. Thank God I don't get taxed on rice.
Because rice grows naturally and is much easier to make. Unless, of course, you're throwing in all kinds of seasonings and making a dish out of it.
But I get taxed on the other stuff, which can be pretty expensive.
Well, color me shocked. It turns out that different products, made of different materials and manufactured in different ways, have different price tags. Plot twist! Tell you what, let's try to finish with the gender bender. I want to end on a positive note.
The overall point with karyotypes, genitalia, hormones, and secondary sex characteristics defining someone's biological sex is one, problematic because there's way too many categories that people don't fit into exactly.
Well, I've already said that you've made those categories up, and I would challenge you to prove me wrong by presenting evidence of a biologist using those categories to sex people. Get your mind out of the gutter. Perhaps a peer-reviewed paper on the subject, using them to argue your point. I doubt you'll be able to present such evidence because, while you may be making claims about biology, I don't think you know as much about it as you would like me to think that you do.
And two, nature designs us in such a way that it's just not possible to fit us into a binary, a specific whole. Nature's gonna make people that have in-between genitalia, or that cannot reproduce, or that are XXX or XXY or XO.
Again with the argument from incredulity and those stupid anomalous base pairs. Also, apart from the obvious "that's not a new sex" response that I've already said repeatedly, I have to ask you a question. Is nature your God? Because nature didn't design you humans or us apes in any particular way. It doesn't have a consciousness or a will. Both our species developed over time through reproduction and evolution by natural selection. Traits developed randomly, and the beneficial ones got passed on, while the detrimental ones died out. Also, we share a common ancestor, just in case you didn't know.
That's just how we are. You're not gonna have all men with deep voices and all women with high-pitched voices. That's just not how it's gonna work.
Yeah, and again, that doesn't mean that biological sex is suddenly not a thing. Your redundancy is irritating, and it's making me redundant.
And most of the population does not fit into these 5 categories perfectly. Most don't. Nature doesn't care about delineating male and females perfectly. That's not how it works.
Well, at least that's technically true. But like I said, nature doesn't care about anything. It's not a sentient being. And those categories are not the criteria by which we determine someone's sex. And that's basically the end of her video. Let's wrap up this video with Miss MaxiPad.
All in all, really, taxing things like tampons and pads is just silly. And we live in a day and age where all these silly laws from like cavemen days.
Cavemen days? I mean, I'm not going to contend that there wasn't some form of law in cavemen days, because I'm not really sure. But they damn sure didn't have tampons or taxes. Hence, cave women were blissfully unaware that one day the absolute horror of taxed tampons would eventually exist. Surely that means they had it better.
Or back in way back when, like when we didn't realize that humans, every single human, are normal.
Well, normal is subjective, and it's usually based on an average or baseline criteria, and then people deviate from that to varying degrees. But go on.
And we're all God's creatures.
Not all of us believe that, but I get what you're trying to say.
Please keep in mind that we're all human beings and that we're poor over here.
Economics is a complicated subject. Sure, most people aren't loaded, and it's possible that big business and politicians being in each other's pockets is contributing to that, perhaps deliberately. But I don't think it's fair to really poor people to lump yourself in with them, seeing as how you clearly have enough to not be dying of starvation. You have enough to clothe yourself. You have enough to have a roof over your head. I mean, as entertaining as you may be in comparison to the other person I responded to in this video, you still are whining about tampons being taxed.
Most of us don't make enough money to even buy tampons.
Whereas some people don't have enough money to even buy food or shelter.
What? Crazy, right? Like, what do we do?
I don't know. I think the government could have some kind of housing program for the homeless where they can do some kind of manual labor that nobody else is going to do in exchange for basic necessities like food and shelter.
Well, we revert back to the Stone Age where, I don't know, we just sit in the river forever?
And the rivers will run red with blood. You know, that's probably how the myth of the biblical plagues got started.
I think today deserves an amazing high five to all the women out there who are fighting the tax against tampons.
Because that's the real issue that needs addressing. Not poverty, homelessness, mass shootings, ISIS, gun control, mental health, natural disasters, cancer, or, you know, anything else. No, taxes on tampons is clearly the most important issue of our time.
Okay, government, if you don't want me to bleed everywhere, don't put taxes on my tampons.
And if you don't want men to bleed everywhere, don't force them to sign up to potentially be sent into a war zone against their will, where they may be shot at and or have limbs blown off. It might also help to not allow their parents to cut off part of their genitals without their consent. Whoops. I have strayed from the topic at hand once again. Apologies. As for you, madam, I suggest that you find an alternative method of plugging up your orifices. Find a more affordable, albeit lower quality brand of pads, or simply continue paying the tax. It's not as ridiculous as you're trying to make it sound.
This isn't a family channel.
Don't worry, mine isn't either. I guess I should wait a while before I respond to another woman, huh? Oh well. I'm sure there are plenty of male idiots just waiting to be refuted. As always, like or dislike, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I'll catch you next time. Stay great, apes.